Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So it's week 13 and the 7-win Jets are traveling to Minnesota to take on the 9-win Minnesota Vikings. A massive game to say the least. Okay, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but when we look at the implications that this game is going to have on the AFC East specifically, it is huge, right? And obviously the Vikings are in the NFC here, but when we look at the AFC East, this is a 4-team race. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Patriots all have a shot to win this division. You know, the Pats and the Bills are playing tonight. If New England wins, I mean, this thing is completely wide open. Completely wide open, okay? So the Jets are playing the Vikings and the Buffalo Bills. We got a couple of, tougher games coming up with the Seattle Seahawks, the Miami Dolphins, and whatnot. But I do not want to overlook this game. Okay, the Minnesota Vikings at home, this is a 9-win football team for a reason. I know there's been some talk that, hey, maybe Minnesota hasn't really had the toughest of schedules. I disagree. It's so hard to win in the NFL. It is so hard. And for the Vikings to look consistent every single week outside of that Cowboys game, where they lost 40-3, but given the context of the situation, they did, beat Buffalo in this crazy overtime performance in Buffalo. The bounce back week, right, there is a bit of a hangover there, so I'm not going to sit here and write off this Vikings team, and they show the ability to bounce back after that loss. So, I'm looking ahead to this. Actually, you know what, before we dive into the preview, I did want to say this. I wanted to give a quick little shout out to my buddy Mike. He's always down below in the comment section, Mike the Vike, big Vikings fan, but always checks out the recap videos, right, for the New York Jets. He's always tuning in, and I just wanted to quickly say I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the Vikings have beaten the Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, and Buffalo Bills, making the Jets' job a lot easier this season. So what can this Mike White Jets-led offense do to have success against this Vikings defense? I think the biggest point of emphasis for me personally is to build off of what they did last week, which was throw the ball short and occasionally whip out those intermediate types of throws. Maybe this week you can work off of play action a little bit more, but when I watched last week, it just looked like a well-oiled machine. It was clean, it was simple. Everything was in sync, everything was in rhythm, nobody was pointing fingers, there wasn't that much confusion. We've seen at times with Zach Wilson, guys not line up in the right spot, being forced to call timeouts, just things looking shaky, things looking rough, things looking rattled. Last week with Mike White in bad weather, it did not look like that in the slightest. Granted, the Bears are a 3-win football team. They have 1 win on the road this season, and they were banged up. No Kyler Gordon, no Jaquan Brisker, no Justin Fields. So, and by the way, Eddie Jackson got hurt midway through the game. Like, that Bears team, it was banged up. This Vikings squad is a brand new, it's a huge challenge here. Much better than the Chicago Bears, much further along, the team filled with veteran players. So I don't think it's going to be as easy, but I think the point remains the same. The Jets have something that they can fall back on, which is just simplistic offensive plays. If Mike White could just put the football in play, distribute the ball, feed Elijah Moore, feed Garrett Wilson, feed the veteran tight ends, maybe hit running backs out of the flat, I think not only will it just, again, keep the Jets in sync, in rhythm, but think about what that's going to do to time of possession, right? If the Jets are controlling the ball, controlling the clock, you're also controlling the game. Think about the Minnesota Vikings for a second, their players. Who comes to mind? Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, who else? TJ Hawkinson, Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks. The majority of those guys are on offense. It's not to say that the Vikings have a bad defense or, they don't have good personnel defensively, because they do have some talent. They have a couple players that I really like, especially going back to college. But when you can take Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver in all of football, out of the game, if you could put him on the bench, if you can take Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in football, out of the game because he's just not on the field, I think that will really help. I think we have to remember that we're playing in Minnesota. We don't have the home crowd on our side here, so controlling the clock, controlling time of possession is going to be huge, and if you can do that through the air, that's just going to open up the running game, and of course, it's a lot easier said than done, but with Mike White, with Mike LaFleur's play calling tendencies with Mike White, I think there will be pathways to have success in the passing game. We also have to factor in that the Minnesota Vikings are dead last in all of football, 32nd in the NFL in yards per pass at 7.8 and passing yards allowed at 276. They're also 31st, so second to last in opposing completion percentage. So with the veteran tight ends, with the offensive playmakers, we should be able to put the ball in play, given Minnesota's track record, given their resume. I mean, this isn't week 2 or week 3 or week 4. We have a pretty good understanding of what the Vikings do well, what they don't do well, and they cannot stop the pass. That has been evident with this Vikings defense. They can't stop them. Okay, so I will say this. Defensively, though, for the Vikings, they don't beat themselves. They're one of the least penalized teams in all of football. So, if the Jets are, entering this game, like the Jets have played some teams this year where they have been penalized a ton, and we have gotten a lot of free penalty yardage. I don't think that's going to be the case this week, but still, pass the ball. Now, switching things up and talking about the Jets defense here going up against Minnesota's offense, what can they do to have success? I think there's really three main factors here. Number one, they have to get after Kirk Cousins. If you can get around Cousins and collapse the pocket on him, that's when he starts to get rattled. That's when you start to see Cousins make bad decisions with the football, when he's starting to go down and he tries to force it. You don't really see Cousins from a clean pocket or even working off of play action like on bootlegs and whatnot. Just, nobody around him, and he just lofts a pass into double coverage. Cousins is a smart enough quarterback. He's a veteran quarterback in this league. He's seen defense after defense. He's gone up against tons of great players. This is a guy who can understand what a defense is trying to do to him, but if you start getting after him, you start slamming him to the ground, his clock will start to speed up. He starts making erratic decisions. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. So I'm really hoping for a big game from Quinn Williams and Carl Lawson. They got to get hands on Kirk Cousins early, maybe even Bryce Huff, right? Get after Cousins early, make your presence known, because Cousins can pick you apart, especially working off a play action. I know I keep saying that, but his ability to step up in the pocket, really pull the ball back, step up in the pocket, find the open guy, he does a really, really good job. Great fit for what Kevin O'Connell wants to do. Next, I just said it, but trying to defend against the play action. So I feel like Quincy Williams could have a big day as like the strong side linebacker when Cousins does decide to pull out from those bootlegs. If Quincy to me is the most ferocious player on the defense. He plays with so much energy, flocks to the football. Has really good closing speed as well. If he is just one-on-one with Cousins in open space, he can quickly neutralize those bootleg play action passes. I think that could be huge. And then, of course, I mean, we're going to be playing the Minnesota Vikings here, so we have to talk about it. Trying to stop Justin Jefferson. Really, though, don't let him beat you deep. I can live with a 5-yard catch. I can live with a 10, 12-yard catch. I mean, Justin Jefferson, again, is one of the best players, one of the best receivers, one of the best players in the entire NFL. He is going to make plays, but just don't let him beat you deep. I don't want to see a 60-yard bomb from Justin Jefferson. Now, schematically speaking, with the way the Jets play on the back end of the defense, we shouldn't allow the deep play. Everything should be in front of us. All eyes should be on the quarterback, so we could identify when the deep shot's going to be taking place. But again, we just cannot let Justin Jefferson beat you over the top. He's killing it this year. 5 touchdowns, over 1,200 receiving yards, I believe over 80 catches as well. So it's going to be a big test, right? Big game, big challenge, but I can't wait for it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.